Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Clifford, and I'm joined by Olivia, who may have just frozen.
Yeah, she's just frozen.
Oh no, but she froze in a really good way. And our frozen co-host there, Olivia, was going to welcome you to the. You're back. Sorry, I was just trying to do your own intro. I'll pass it to you, Olivia.
Okay, thank you. I'm back. I've had some technical difficulties today, but we're still pushing on. Yeah, so welcome to the 11th episode of Fighting True North, whereby we invite guests to share their pivotal lessons and moments that can help you navigate your career. And let's have an emphasis on lessons and moments, career lessons, life lessons, career moments, and life moments. And the guest today is going to exemplify both of those. I know a little bit about his story, but I'm really excited as to who we have on today. So Ryan, do you want to explain who we have?
Yes, so Gopi works at Barclays as a partnership and business development AVP. I actually know Gopi from my days at Barclays. We at one point had worked in the same team. He always has such a great outlook. He's always smiling. So I expect lots of smiles today. And actually, what was incredible is every time I've spoken to you, I've learned more and more about your journey. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted you on the series, because I found it inspirational. So I hope others do too. Before I pass it over to you, Gopi, the format of the session is going to be same as usual. So we have a presentation. We're going to have a poll as well in the middle that we want you to interact with. We'll pop up the details later of how you do that. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, then just put it in the comments. And we're also using slido.com. We'll get to Q&A at the end. So over to you, Gopi.
Yep. Thanks both for the intro. So yeah, I'm just going to kick off with I think before I even go into my backstory, it's not necessarily like students, if you're not necessarily interested about finance as well, that doesn't matter. It's more just a sort of mindset about your career as well. So you could be wanting to go into loads of different things, but it's just the mindset that I've sort of learned from my journey so far and from my family and friends that I want to share, and from there hopefully you guys can take something away from it. So just to start off, in terms of my backstory, I want to start off with someone who's really been the inspiration for me during my whole life, which is my mum. So she's so if you go back to the 80s, so 1980s, she was actually displaced from Sri Lanka and had to leave as a result of the Sri Lankan Civil War, which took place from 1986 all the way to 2008. More than 100,000 people plus actually died as a result of it. And it was a war which was as a result of two ethnic groups, Tamils and Sinhalese, who were the majority. So they make up about 75% of the population. And are the governing ruling party. So she faced a lot of injustices there. They were treated as second-class citizens. You had to get higher grades to go to university. So she actually missed out on university as a result. Hard to get well-paid jobs as well. So it was, there was a lot of war as well as a result. So the minority population then had a offshoot of a group called the Tamil Tigers, and they were very violent. Both sides were very violent, so the government as well as the Tamils. So there's stories of my mum's given me stories of her family, and even my dad, his nephew actually died in the war. He was fighting on the actual Tamil side. So there was injustices on both sides. And I had a chance through my life to understand more and more about it. And she's here actually in the picture, if you look in the middle picture here. So if you actually have a look at her, her skin's actually white. So in addition to the struggles that she's having to move to a new country, she also has vitiligo. which affected her later on in her life. So that's something that where your skin color actually changes from brown to white. So there was times when she had like just massive patches on her face as well. And from that, I think what I've learned from her was that really positive outlook that she has, where she doesn't let it get to her, and she's really, really confident, open to anyone, speaks to anyone, whoever she meets. So it's having that mindset where you can speak to anyone to get what you want done. So her journey really was her coming over to England in the 90s. She didn't speak the language well, and she ended up actually working in like a factory doing putting fruit and stuff in packaging and stuff. And after a few months, she actually then got arranged married. So her brother got her married off because it's sort of part of the culture where the family try to move on, girls early on to be married off. So it's kind of like, I think they are sort of seen as a burden from my perspective. It's part of the whole journey. So she got married to my dad, who's in the picture here on the third picture. And so I think he'd had a lot more experience in Europe. He'd come over as a student, but he had a really, really difficult time in terms of his dad passing away. So he was very, very he's pretty linked to alcohol all the time. So he was a severe alcoholic. So my mum tells me a story of when she first got married, and alcohol isn't seen as a really positive thing in the Sri Lankan community, where women are supposed to go and stuff like that. So from her perspective, being taken to the pub on her wedding day afterwards was a really sad moment for her. And yeah, I don't think it's alcohol necessarily isn't like sweeping common. You can't say it's seen negatively overall Sri Lankan community. It's just that this alcoholism sort of really did give her a very negative perspective of it. So he was actually really violent as well as a result of being an alcoholic. But yeah, I think to be honest, he was a really, really nice man as well in terms of when he wasn't on alcohol, when he wasn't drinking and stuff. So he always went out and tried to help people. He could speak English, so he helped a lot of people who came over to this country. But yeah, I think that's something that's really stuck in my mind, which is the violence I saw my mum go through when I was growing up. So that was quite a hard moment for me. My childhood, always seeing that. And when I was about 7 years old as well, actually, he then actually passed away due to a brain hemorrhage. And I think that's where I really saw the strength of my mum in terms of being able to look after her family, so my sister and me. So we didn't really have any family nearby, and even if they were close by, you didn't really see them on an often basis. So she had to work like 2 to 3 jobs to sort of bring us up. And she was very, very. I think this is something that was actually quite wide-reaching in the Sri Lankan community. Is they have a massive emphasis on education. So she was very adamant that we studied our hardest to do the best that we could in school. So my sister and myself actually did well at school. We're really focused on that to do well in school, and we were both able to get bursaries to secondary school. So it's just I think the mindset that we have is my mum has is what she wasn't able to do, what she wasn't able to appreciate. So able to get that university degree or have that opportunity of education, she wants us to make the most of that. So the opportunities that you guys have, whether it's through college or through any way of educating that you guys really appreciate, that you really enjoy, that's something that I'd really encourage to. Education is such a key to opening doors. So that's something I've definitely seen. So that sort of gives you an insight into my mum and myself at about 11. And from, I think it was about 3 years after my dad passed away, I sort of came to know about this guy on the left here. So he was actually best friends with my mum's mum's brother. So and he actually apparently had the hots for my mum as well in the Sri Lankan village. So it's like a love story. So but he himself had gone through quite a journey as a result of the civil war. So he left Sri Lanka in the 80s, trying to get to Europe. The reason for why was to try and get a better life, right? But on the way, while he was in actually Egypt, people had actually put drugs in his bag, and he was arrested for that, and was in prison in Nigeria for about 10 years. And he didn't really talk about to me really about the sort of issues he's had and how he went through that. But such a positive man in general, a really, really positive man. Didn't really show that at all when I was growing up with him. So after he was in prison for 10 years, he was then released in Pakistan, so a country which he didn't speak the language or anything, but he was really, really integrated into the community and had some really good friends from there as well. So yeah, so my mum, my uncle then reached out to him and said, my mum, your ex, not your ex, but someone who you really liked, is actually single. She's got 2 kids. Would you be interested in actually getting married to her and speaking to her? So yeah, they spoke to each other, and when I was about 10, my dad, I call him dad now, but yeah, Shri, he got married to my mum. So I think for about 10 years, it was a really, really good, really, really great time with my dad. It's that positivity that he really shows off, which was, doesn't matter what you've been through. It's about just not worrying and being, so there's a real big quote, which he always used to say, which was, don't worry, be happy, which will come up another slide in the future. But that's something that I really learned from my time with my dad. Then when just, it doesn't matter what you've been through, but it's about the outlook that you have on your future life. So I think a lot of people often think about, I didn't have, my parents weren't the richest, I didn't study this, or I didn't do this or whatever when I was younger. But it's about looking forward and trying to make the most of what you've got now, because every single one of you guys have got such great qualities and opportunities as well, that you can make a really big difference. And depending on what you want to do, you can do that. So my mum and dad, they from my eyes, they've become really successful in being able to live a happy life here, settle down, have their kids. See my sister as well on the right. She, from a young age, she always wanted to be a doctor, but she didn't decided to get classified. But she, until really late on, I think to about 3 years ago, she found out that she's actually dyslexic. But throughout that whole time, she struggled and still managed to become a doctor. So it's just the hard work and the resilience that I really had a chance to learn from my mum and my dad, because often you can have a very negative outlook sometimes at life, like, my day's not going well, or my job's not good, or I'm doing really badly at this at school. But I think it's trying to actually give yourself perspective about how lucky you are and where you are, and then trying to make change. If you're not happy with what you're doing, if you're not doing well in a subject, put the effort in, put the work in, and you can make the difference. And something that I really thought about as well is, I might be really nervous about exam or something, but if I know that I've at least given it my best shot, I'm giving it my all, then I'm happy, and that really takes off the pressure from me. I always have that in my mind in terms of whatever I do. So moving on, it goes to the quote about my dad as well. So this was something that he used to always say, and I was like, what is this from? Is this such an unusual thing to say? I thought it was from Bob Marley, but it was actually from Bobby McFerrin. So yeah, I didn't think these sort of songs got to Sri Lanka, but clearly they did. So my dad would always say that he's very, very chill guy, and he would just say, don't worry, be happy. And that's something I always try and keep in my mind even to this day, because I think people can get often, even myself, get often really stressed about very small things. I think one thing, just going back, actually, I forgot to say was, so my dad, Sharif, he actually, after 10 years, so he'd been married to my mum after 10 years, he also had a brain hemorrhage and passed away as well. So that's been really hard for me ever since to deal with that. But I'm just trying to really learn from that and take it on board from what he said and the lessons, and to use that to just try and make him, just try and be at least 10% as how he was. Just sort of emphasizes to me that I've sort of done a good job as well. So just talking through my career journey as well. I know a lot of you guys are in college or a few years away from working. So some of you might think, oh, I went to a private school or whatever to try and get into banking might be quite a difficult thing. But there's a large number of colleagues that I've worked with who've actually come through the apprentice scheme as well. So that's actually another alternative where you apply 16, 17, 18 to the apprentice scheme. Even older, you can still apply as well. And they actually pay for you do a part-time degree while working. And I think there's actually real positives in terms of the people I've seen there, because firstly, you're saving on all that money you have to spend for your degree. So I think I've got about £50,000 worth of debt amassing. So yeah, it's not great that, but so there's that as an option for coming into Barclays. Other options are also the graduate scheme, which is something that I'll talk about. And there's also little things like spring weeks and stuff, which I'll talk about as well. So just to go through, so initially I did my A levels. I didn't actually do that well in my A levels from my perspective. And I wasn't very sure what I wanted to go into. So I had my mindset. So I'm sure there's a lot of you guys out there who are thinking about, I'm not really sure what I really want to go into. So what I did was I really looked into what I find interesting, what is my passion in. And history was something that I really enjoyed and enjoy studying. And I also thought about having a little spin as well in terms of career. So if I was considering law or banking. So law, I knew people, you could do a conversion course after you do a degree, 1 year conversion course to go into law. So that was an option. Or banking, it didn't matter what degree you did. You can go into banking. What was important is that you get the work experience. So during your university times, your college times, afterwards to get that experience. So in my whilst I joined my university, University of Exeter, and that's when my father had passed away, actually, in about 2 months when I was there. So it was a hard time, but I think it was just having that mindset about doing the best I can, and I didn't want to have any excuses when I look back at my degree that blaming oh, this is it's because of this, just trying to see the positives out of the opportunity that I had, and I wanted to make the best of it. So I gave it a shot in terms of, while I was there, I think it was in October, there were some job roles that were there, so things that I could apply for, and the Barclays Spring Week was on there. And I thought, you know what, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's apply for it and see what the Barclays Spring Week is. And banking has always been something that's attracted me, because when I was growing up as well, and even now, when I was growing up, I lived in a council house, and from the building, I could from my house, I could see Canary Wharf, which is the financial banking sector, with all these high rises. So you've got like Barclays, HSBC. I could just see that, but I never really thought I could ever really make it there. So it was just felt so distant away from my council estate. So it was it was really cool to be able to apply and actually go through the interview process. So the interview process for a Spring Week is quite similar to an internship, which is something that you do during the summer. during your like first or second year at university. So the actual application process is where you'd fill out a questionnaire about why you should become. So some of the questions would be, tell me a time when you've done you've used teamwork. Tell me a time when you've why you actually want this. Why do you want to work at Barclays? So it's actually really important for you to get work experience in any area. You know, it could be I actually worked in catering at my university. So that was really fun. I worked as a tutor as well. So it doesn't matter what job experience you have. It's more about the transferable skills. So I do really put an emphasis on working, while you're studying as well. Like it can be a part-time job. It can be different clubs as well. So like I remember applying for a student society called widening participation officer. I had to go for elections. That was a whole experience. So that was my so I did the spring week. Had a great insight into a number of different areas across the bank. So that's a really good chance for people to get an insight into what banking is like in different areas and whether you like it. Having the chance to actually walk through the doors at Barclays and see, go up the actual high rise was really it was a great moment for me, having seen that since I was a child from my window. Afterwards, I also got on the internship, so I had to do a presentation, and they liked it and they liked me throughout that week. So I got the internship, which is a 2 to 3 month period where you actually work in a team in Barclays, and it's paid as well, so that's pretty good. So that was a great time to actually understand further what the actual work's like. Whereas the spring week's more just people presenting to you about what their area is about, and you don't really have a clue about what they're really talking about, to be honest, because you're coming fresh to it. So it gives you an initial insight, but you don't have the full knowledge. I was working on the branch side, so what we can do to improve branch strategy and stuff like that. So branches in terms of the high street and the bank there. And after that, I got offered the graduate scheme, which is a 2-year program where you have, this is after university, where you have, so apprentice scheme would also then lead to the graduate scheme as well, is where you have 4 rotations of 6 months in different areas within the bank. So that's really good in terms of giving you an idea about what different areas are like and really understanding what you enjoy and what you don't. And I think there's a lot of companies which offer this, and I think it's a great opportunity for any student to get an insight into that career, rather than jumping in like fully and being stuck in a role. So I think it's a great opportunity. While I got offered that, I had the opportunity. My university was doing a year abroad where you can study abroad, and here I just thought I thought I'd apply. I unfortunately didn't get as good grades as I'd hoped for because so I'd got a 60.25, so that's a low 2-1. The higher your grade, the better university you could go to. So I really want to go to Hong Kong or America. Unfortunately, my first year I didn't do as well, so I was left over with 3 universities: one in Germany, one in Turkey, and one in Seoul, South Korea. And it was a women's university as well. So I was a bit like, I don't think I can really do Turkey because it's in Europe. I could easily go there on holiday. Germany, yeah, it's really close to London. So what's the real point? So I was sort of reached out and asked them about Seoul, and I said, why is this actually as an option for me? I didn't realize I was a girl. I thought it was a guy. So yeah, they said that it didn't matter. Guys could go as well. I did some research, and it was a really, really high-ranking university in Korea. It looked really cool, the building and stuff. So I just thought, you know what am I really going to regret? Is it not going to a country and, really going out of my comfort zone? Or will it be me just being, living with my comfort zone, going to Barclays and carrying on where, I can apply again and give it a go again and try and get a job there again. So I actually ended up going to Korea after and booking that ticket 2 days after I got the offer from Barclays for the graduate scheme. So I hadn't booked my ticket because I was in two minds about whether I should go or not. So that was really scary actually doing that. Guys, tell me as well if I'm running over times wise. So yeah, I went there. It was such a culture shock in terms of didn't know anyone, didn't know the language, didn't know the geography, like specifically where in Seoul and stuff. So it was a real shock, but I think I really enjoyed it because I met a lot of people who are friends to me, really close friends with me even to this day, who all have that same mindset of being open to explore new areas, seeing different cultures, and trying out really like different foods and loving it as well. So it really emphasized to me how going out of your comfort zone is a really enjoyable experience, and you learn a lot from it. So it's something I've tried to push into my career as well, because I don't want to become stagnant, and it's really important to try out different industries or learn new skills, which will make you make your CV as attractive as possible. So the next summer, I actually had 2 offers. I applied again for internships. Got one in HSBC and corporate banking, so that's big companies and trying to finance them with lending. And another one was with Procter and Gamble, who own Gillette, Lenore, etc. Like a number of different smaller companies which sell items in like Tesco's, supermarkets everywhere. And I went for the Procter and Gamble because it was different, and it was at this early stage in my career. I want to try out as many different things as I can. I definitely would suggest this to other people, to you guys as well, is to really take the chance to try out different things, because I find the longer you're in later in your career, the harder it is for you to move away from it. So it's really nice to be able to do that early on. No one will ask you any questions about that. So that was a really good experience in understanding sales within Lenore. And after that, I realized I really enjoyed finance and the impact it can really have on a large number of people. Money is such an important thing for people. So I really wanted to work there where you can make a massive impact to over 24 million customers with Barclays. So that's something I did even in my internship, where I thought we should be using our screens on the waiting lines in branch, because it's so important, because waiting times can feel very long. And if you have a screen with, say, Barclays products, a bit of news as well, that will reduce perceived waiting times. So we actually managed to actually deliver that. And walking in after my internship and seeing that in a number of different branches, even in my branch at uni, that was really satisfying, and that was something I wanted to do again. So that led me to then take on the grad scheme. And whilst I was doing the graduate scheme, I really wanted to actually go back to my history as well. And as I told you earlier about the Sri Lankan Civil War, I'd actually done my dissertation at my university about the Sri Lankan Civil War, and that was really good about following my passion in terms of understanding it. And then I became a Tamil Guardian journalist as well. So that's a website which actually posts articles and pressures the Sri Lankan government to actually take notice of the human rights abuses they've done. Pressures the UN, pressures a number of UK governments as well. So that was really good in terms of being able to follow my passion in that area as well, and try and make a difference for people in the country now, and for the hundreds of thousands of people who've died as well. So that was the Tamil Guardian. And just recently now, I've after the graduate scheme, after the 4 rotations, I've now moved into the business partnerships and business development area. And this is where I work with actually big tech companies and look for partnerships. So I'm not going to say their names because it's all. I think I've signed some papers not to do that. But yeah, so here we try and look at lending products that we could do with these partnership teams, credit cards that we could do as well, and come up with solutions and then pitch to them, compete with a number of different financial companies, and then look to then deliver it effectively as well. So that's my role right now, in short. And something that I'm looking to as well in the future, I'm starting working on, is also an e-commerce business. So, a lot of people might ask me, you're at Barclays now, why don't you just relax and chill out and stuff? But I think having your own business is something very inspirational as well, because it's something that you've created wholly and can have your own say on it. So, and I've learned a lot as well just from having my own e-commerce business as well, where you have to do Facebook targeting ads, Instagram targeting ads, marketing, the actual product, trying to identify it, the whole design of the store. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can learn from that, and the growth of e-commerce in the world, especially the UK, is massive, and it's only going to keep growing, especially with COVID. So something that I really want to follow as well in the background. That's my journey so far. So we've got you guys a question as well. Ryan?
Hey, I'm back just to talk through how to.
Yeah, so if I overrun, I want to make sure I haven't overrun or anything.
You're definitely taking longer. No, so the question that Gopi's asked is, can you get your dream job just through people you know? So yes, not sure, or no. To participate in the poll, go to slido.com and use the code FTN. You can also submit questions on there as well. We will come back to the answers of this in the Q&A. So I'll pass it back to you, Gopi, to run through the rest of it.
Well, sorry guys for going over time, but hopefully you guys are taking some stuff away from this. So in terms of my vision, this is something that I think I've been obviously influenced by the passing away of two of my parents, especially my last dad, which was at your deathbed, you don't look back at the things that you did, you lament the things that you didn't do, and it's really poignant to me because I'm always trying to push forward, and I don't want to have any regrets in terms of things I haven't done. So whether that's speaking up in a meeting where there's maybe very high, there's people who are at higher levels than you, much higher, who are CEOs, directors. You don't want to have regrets for not speaking up and being scared of people, because at the end of the day, they're just people. They'll move on and you won't see them again or whatever. So I really think the important thing is not to regret that and to really go for your dreams, because if you don't, it's something that you'll miss out on. Cool. I think I just repeat that point 3 times, but yeah, that's something I try and really live by. My future ambitions, so business development, which is the sort of area that I'm in right now. Might look for different opportunities as well within this area, within Barclays. Entrepreneurship as well, so that's the company that I'm looking to set up as well. And then finally, public policy is potentially an area that I'm looking into as well, so in government, because of my historical background and my political interests. 3 takeaways, so this is my final slide, is to really take the chance, because you guys are in a great opportunity. You have a great opportunity right now, which is to explore as many different career options that you have. So make sure, just write them down, think about all the different careers that you have, and really make sure that you actually utilize the people that you have around you. So a lot of people think, okay, you've got to have, a mum or a dad who are from a certain career area. So say it's banking, you have to have a mum or dad or uncle or whatever who are in that area. And that's simply not the case. It's about using your network to the maximum. So my mum or dad didn't, my mum's a cleaner at a school. She's not been working at a bank. My dad doesn't, he's not alive. So how am I supposed to go about getting that network? It's about speaking to any friends or family, using your school, your college, using your university, using LinkedIn as well. So just Googling on LinkedIn, certain, say you're on Barclays, just searching Barclays and whoever's in there in that company on LinkedIn, reaching out to them, you're not going to lose anything. So definitely explore that and make use of that. So I need to thank people at Barclays who've really helped me as well. So I've reached out to people if I want to go for my interviews. So there's a guy called Yinka. He didn't know me that well. He helped me out. And then even at university, I reached out and asked, is there anyone who has worked at Barclays who's a former student? And they put me in touch with a guy called Rich Lawler, and he was in the graduate scheme at the time, and he gave me interviews and really helped me out. So it's about exploring and making sure you do that, because you guys are in a really good position to do that now. And aim high as well. Don't there's always those voices in my head as well as anyone else's, which is telling you, oh, you're not good enough to do it, etc. But aiming high and going for it, make sure that you don't have that regret later on in your life. So really, push yourself to not be scared and go for it. And finally, don't worry, be happy, as my dad would say. So yeah, don't always get stressed about careers or school, etc. Try and enjoy the moment in terms of where you are. And something I do today actually is I always write every day 3 things I'm really grateful for, and it sort of just highlights to me how lucky I am as well. And that sort of brings my presentation today to an end. So thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you guys take some takeaways from this.
Thank you very much, Gopi. So we will now go to Q&A. So if you go on to the next slide, you can ask questions through either the comments section on whatever platform you're watching on now, or you can do it through the slido.com. So when I jumped back on, you said, "Are you taking longer than too long?" You were taking longer than historic guests, but we knew that, and when we spoke beforehand, we thought you telling your backstory meant so much, because it really has defined so much of your story and what's happened. So just thank you for being very vulnerable and sharing pretty much all your story. In fact, just as you were speaking, I learned something new about you again. It's like every time there's this new piece I learn about you. So to kick off with the first question, you studied history and you're in banking.
Yeah.
So my question is about transferable skills, because a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, I studied history, I'll go and work in a museum." What skills that you think are really transferable into any industry?
What skills are transferable to any?
Yeah, what skills, I guess, did you pick up through studying that you think are really good ones that are now transferable to, you've been at Procter & Gamble, you've been at Barclays?
So that's specific to history degree or just studying in general?
Both.
Okay. So I think the history degree taught me how to analyze large amounts of information and then distill it down to, this is the overall opinion, this is the overall thought. And that's something that you can utilize in banking, where you get given so many slides, so many PowerPoints, so much data about different things. It's about really distilling it all into one clear message that you can present to, say, a person who's a decision maker, who's a CEO, etc. And then I think that's also something that you learn from studying as well, which is about being able to absorb large amounts of information and then regurgitate just the specific bits that you need for that answer. So I'm sure everyone has that chance to learn at college. And I think finally, I'd say presenting skills as well. So presenting, having the confidence to be able to stand up and speak is, initially I was really, really nervous, and sometimes I even get nervous nowadays as well still. But it's about being able to articulate yourself. So in history, you have to argue a point. You might have a seminar where you have to argue a point. And it's been pretty useful for me during work to argue and destroy some people. No, I'm joking. To get my point across. So that's been really helpful. And I think finally, actually, my university in Exeter was actually there's another campus, so it was in Cornwall. And what I learned from there was just to really be laid back as well. Like, not taking life so seriously, because there's people there who are just walking so slowly on the street. And coming from London, I find that quite hard to understand, but just shows you, you don't have to be running around like racing everywhere left, right, and centre. So that's something that I've learned as well.
I think that's, do you know what, just as you said that around like consuming a load of information and taking out the key points, so that is true. That is such a good skill to get. That's transferable to anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm also impatient on being a Londoner. On any escalators, if someone's standing on the left, I'm like, you stand on the right, you walk on the left. Olivia, question from your end.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Thank you very, very much for being vulnerable on this talk. Because of course you said that, you need to be able to articulate yourself, you need to be able to express yourself. But I think vulnerability allows you to connect with others and to bond with others. And although this is a very odd platform to do it, where you're talking to so many different people that you will never get to see, or maybe you probably will never get to meet all of them or any of them, I think they've taken away a lot from your journey, probably more than you know. So thank you very much for expressing yourself and to, I guess, giving your journey justice. So thank you very much. I have an observation and a question. So with my observation, I've noticed in your story and your journey so far that you use your vision and initiative to steer your success, to steer your direction. But you do that whilst embracing help and wisdom from others, them being your family, them being your peers, those being those that you admire. And I think that is a very good skill to have, because although there's so much you can learn through education and even through things on your own, but you sometimes do not have the role models around you, or you have that example to lead you forward. And I think that's where vision is really important, to kind of see beyond what you can see and to see opportunity instead, even though you may not physically see it, but you know that it's the right direction for you to go to. So I think that's really admirable. And I think with everything that you've been through and things that you've seen since, I imagine that your definition of success is really governed by the variety of people that you have in your life. And although it's a question that may be too big to ask now, but I'm really curious, what would be your definition of success, of like where you want to go, who you are now? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I think quite simply put, it would be having a smile on my mum's face. That's the simplest answer to it. It's quite an easy answer for me, but it's just seeing what she's been through. So that was see her. I actually ended up buying my mum's council house when I first, after a year and a half after getting my job. She'd always wanted a house of her own. So that was really, really a happy moment for me. But in terms of success, it's a really difficult one. It's always changing. So like for the next, I think next 2-3 years, it would probably be working abroad in another country, whether that's entrepreneurship, having my own business, or through banking or in another company. That's something I'm exploring now with my mentors. I've reached out to people, and even today I was talking to someone who's giving me advice about what they would do and giving me the right contacts. So I think it's really about not thinking just because you're born in a certain family or you haven't got these certain people around you that you can't create that circle, because you can. People love to talk about themselves as well. So you just give them a chance to do that, and they will. So that's something I always do whenever I go have a catch up. So reach out to someone on LinkedIn, have some questions ready for them to talk about. Look like show them that you've done the research and that you're interested in them. So look through their LinkedIn account and see what they've done, and then ask them questions about that. And they'll feel, wow, this person really actually is interested in what I have to say, and you can learn from that, and they can really help you.
That actually reminds me of something that happened this week, where I've had 2 different people reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
One, which was really good, was, hey, I have some questions about XYZ. That's easy for me to respond to because they've asked very specific questions, where one was like, Great to connect. We should talk. Like, I'd love to connect with you. Let's talk about this. And it was just really vague. It was quite generic. I was like, you could have sent this to anyone. So I think actually going with a purpose, like especially with mentors as well.
Yeah.
You know, mentorship should be driven by the mentee, I would say. So you going to your mentor today saying, this is what I'm looking at doing. Like, I think that's a really nice way of driving it. Which leads me on to a question on actually mentors and role models and things like that, because you've said how your mum, dad, sister have all been role models. You've mentioned that you have some mentors yourself. What's your view on, I guess, making the most out of mentorship? And actually, do you mentor anyone?
Yeah. In terms of making the most out of mentorship, it's trying to have an understanding of what your overall question is. So mine is, what's the next stage for me in my career? I even did the work on myself. Like, I have a book called A Job to Love, and it's by the School of Life, and it just sort of pulls out questions for yourself in terms of what do I really enjoy doing. And then it sort of gave me an understanding of these are the areas I want to go into career-wise, these are the sectors. And then I go to my mentors, I find mentors in those areas and speak to them and ask them about that sector so I can understand about it. And now my mentors actually told me to actually apply for jobs to really understand what that job's like, because you're never going to know what that job's like unless you actually start applying and seeing what the process is like and speaking to more people there. So saying that, actually, I'm more than happy to speak to anyone who reach out to me on LinkedIn, ask me any questions. More than happy to. And I do mentor. I've got some mentors, so mentees. So I had one student from my old school who also got a bursary to my secondary school, and I gave him a week he spent a week with me at Barclays to give him insight. I think he wants to go into law though, so that was a bit of a shame. Cool. Is there any other questions? Or?
I'll pass over to Olivia so I don't monopolise all the questions.
No, I think mentorship is very important, and well, maybe we'll touch on this later in the series. But even though we're young professionals, I still feel that there's something that I think I wrote a few years back, and if I try to remember it rightly, I said something like, "You're never too old to learn, and you're never too young to teach." And when I thought about that phrase, it was because it was a bad circumstance when I wrote it, but I think it kind of merits the fact that even though we're young now, or you may be elder later, and you have so much to give away, there's so much you can learn from someone who's younger than you. And on the flip side, just because you're young doesn't mean that you don't have anything to offer, whether it's wisdom or guidance. So even though we're young professionals, there's so much that we can do to lift up those who are coming after us. So I think it's very noble that you're mentoring. With that, what do you think that mentees can learn from you?
Can I just quickly go back to one point that you said there? So
Sure.
In terms of mentees, what I can actually learn from mentee, what I learned was actually being a leader to them, so being a manager, and that's so useful for a young professional right now at an early stage of their career. So if you're reaching out to people, asking them, and they're very early on in their career as well, don't think that they're not getting anything out of it. They're actually getting a lot out of it. They're learning how to be a leader, and that's a really difficult skill for them to learn. So you're giving it free to them. So, and also you're making them talk about themselves. So there's so much for them. So don't be nervous about reaching out. So your question was, what can I provide mentees, right?
Yeah, what can mentees learn from you?
Well, it's insight into like banking and finance, and then also actually I think the connections that I have. So that's something that I think any mentor that you have, you're now linking into their whole network, and that is so powerful. So yeah, just I think that's such a big thing. So everyone that I've reached out to, now you're in contact with them as well. So it's great, and then just giving you maybe just a mindset. Positive mindset as well. So just giving you, so I think a lot of people can get kind of down about certain things.
Yeah.
So just going to the answers of the poll, you asked, can you get your dream job just through people you know? And we've had a split vote between yes and not sure. I have some views on this. What are your views, first of all?
What was split? So 50-50?
Yeah, on yes and not sure. No one said no.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, at least I'm happy no one said no.
Was that what you was expecting?
I was expecting, I was actually expecting like 70 or 80% to say yes. But maybe that's just from my experience. But it's fair enough. Like when you're at that, when I was at that age, I think when I was in college as well, in like sixth form, I think I wasn't thinking that I could use my network well. I was thinking I didn't have any connections, and it's going to be quite difficult for me. But hopefully that's changed from these guys listening to me.
When I read the question, two things came to mind. So one, it says, can you get your dream job just through people you know? So I was focusing on the just piece. So I can understand people who say like not sure or no, because I say my definition, it's someone else's definition, which I liked, of luck is opportunity meeting preparation meeting opportunity. So I think there's an element of like knowing people, but also just knowing how to utilize people and being prepared to make the most of it and to create those opportunities. And I think the second point is I think you're a brilliant example of this. I think we're all probably brilliant examples of this, of you don't need to come from a particular background to know these people. So for example, Gopi, you didn't have parents who were in banking. Equally, I didn't either, but we were both able to find people through various, networks, uni, being proactive. So that they were the two things that really sprung to mind when I thought about that poll. So picking up on something that you said a while back was around like not sitting back, which I think is an interesting thing, because if you go all the way back to a student, it's always like, okay, well, A levels, like, okay, I want to get go to the university that I want. Then once you're in uni, it's about getting the internship, and then once you graduate, it's about getting that full-time job or that graduate scheme. And then I think some people go, yes, I've made it, and then you realize that it's now just another thing. You're on the graduate scheme or full-time job. It's what's next. So I guess it's quite easy to always be looking at what's next. You can't just sit back. But do you take any time out in your career at the moment where you've just gone, actually, I'm going to sit back for myself? I'm just going to take a bit of a relaxing time for like a week or a month or something, not focus on that next thing. Like, do you do that?
I do find it really hard, but because I'm always like thinking forward and like trying to drive. But I think the one thing that really gets me to relax is actually traveling. So and I think I remember telling you, Ryan, like how it's like I find like a drug. Like when you go to a country which is so culturally different from where what I'm used to, it just gets my like senses up, and I'm so like so I'm just like so in shock, and I just love it. Meeting new people from different areas and stuff like that. So I went on a solo travel for the first time to Israel. I just booked the ticket. Like I was in Poland initially, and then I had a week extra. So I was like, what can I do? So I just went on Skyscanner, found the cheapest flight I could get. It was in Israel in 2 days' time. So I just booked it and went. And that gives me another chance just to relax and chill out, actually. See different places and see cool places. That's the way I do it.
I guess just to clarify there, when you said drug, you mean like the cultural experience. Drug here. Just for any students watching.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. But you know what? I remember seeing it on I think it was Instagram. I saw it. I'm like, you were asking Instagram like, oh, I'm in this country, where should I go next? I was like, has he literally just gone somewhere with no plan? So I guess it's really nice.
It's cool being spontaneous, and I think you're right. You definitely need to relax as well sometimes. And I think it goes back to what my dad said, which is don't worry, be happy, because sometimes you can always be searching for something which is perfect. And that's just human nature, right? That's why we are as we are. We're always trying to improve. And sometimes you have to look at what you have got and be happy. So yeah, I think I am trying to do that a bit more, but I'm not perfect.
Just to, oh, Brian, unless you had another question.
Uh,
Okay. No, I think what you said about relaxing, I can definitely take tips on that because
Yeah.
I am poor at relaxing. I'm really bad. So I can learn from you. And then what you said about perfection, I think is really important because, of course, life is not perfect. We may want it to be, but it's not sometimes or all the time. And you could even say that like to chase perfection is like it's like running a race that you will never win. It's kind of like it's a kind of, how can I put this? It's like you're setting yourself up for failure in some sense, but it doesn't mean that it's not something to strive for. And with your story, essentially, you've been through so much, but you've also triumphed through a lot as well. And I wanted to just unpack your mindset into how did you get through the lowest of times and still thrive in the highest of times, especially, I guess, through university and through now as well. Be really interesting to know.
Yeah. I think in terms of the lowest points, it's just the people that are around me. So my sister's pretty much kind of like my mum, to be honest. She's well, I'd say she actually acts like a mum. So she is like a really, really strong person. You sort of saw the structure changing. So my mum was actually then became like the child, and me and my sister are now the adults, which is really hard for me to deal with even now sometimes. But it made me grow up a lot, and seeing her the way that she is, where she just takes it in her stride. And actually, my mum as well, she still was laughing, like she's still happy, and she talks to, she didn't change in any way. And it's just seeing those people as role models during those difficult times, and her telling me to go for it when I had that interview with Barclays for the spring week, taking a photo of me when I had my suit on to go in for the first day, like that's what my real inspiration is. And then I don't know if I said, I think I said this before to you guys, but when it was a really stressful time for me, when I was like presenting for the internship during Barclays, I sometimes I just imagine my dad's actually sitting there watching me, and it just makes me like really relaxed, because it just emphasizes how unimportant these things are. So you might have an exam and you think this is the end of the world, blah blah blah, but really it isn't. Like for me personally, I just think this is nothing compared to what I've been through with seeing my dad pass away. So this is nothing. So it makes it really easy for me, and I think that's what people should try and have a mindset as well, because I think people put importance on things which aren't actually that important. In terms of, I think, that would be my answer.
Oh, wow.
I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your story. So much of what you was talking about, I could resonate with personally. And I had those experiences where I'd be in Canary Wharf in this big head office, and you're surrounded by people who either don't come from the same background, don't look like you, don't understand where you've come from, but actually there are people like that in the office. You just might not know. And I think that's a brilliant example of actually, I didn't realize you were there, and would resonate so much with kind of the same sort of backgrounds and stories. So just something that comes to mind.
I think it's also important just for me to emphasize that I'm not always like looking at people like, oh, these people actually got a goal and spoon in their mouth or anything, because they've got their own problems. Like they might have problems which are much bigger for them than not everyone's going to have like two dads pass away and stuff. So like, I don't take that away from anyone. Like everyone's got their own problems, and it's just just use them to your to make you stronger. That's what I try and do.
Olivia, what do we have coming up next on Finding True North? We've hit time.
Oh, we've hit time. Oh no, I mean, to be fair, this episode has been such a highlight for me. And it's definitely going to be one I'm going to watch again and again, and one that I'm going to encourage lots of people to watch, because I think there's so much more than that you can learn from what we anticipated from this series. And Gopi, thank you so much for being part of this project and sharing your story.
To organise this, and to everyone who's taken the time out to listen as well. Like, people being proactive to actually try and learn from people by joining this. So already they're taking the right steps. So good luck to everyone, and please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in any support in any way. Be happy to help.
Right. Well, although I do not want to, I'd be happy to go on to the next slide and finish this episode. So can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Oh, okay. So that was an episode with a capital E and with an exclamation mark at the end. Thank you so much, Gopi, for being part of Fighting Too North on this episode. If you like this episode, and with Ryan and I will probably be looking over Gopi's slides. You can have them as well. They will be summarized in a document called an episode highlights document. It will be released on Friday, the 17th of July on the Tech Allies Network website, specifically on the Fighting Too North webpage, which is on the screen now and in the YouTube description. There we'll have additional Q&A, and you can keep slides to keep. So whenever you are in that moment whereby you're not sure what direction you want to go, and you want a bit of inspiration, you can look through this PDF and remind yourself of what Gopi has said. And next episode, we have another contact from Ryan. Ryan, do you want to explain who that guest is?
Yes, so next week I'm excited to have Matt Long join us. So Matt is a lean agile leader and scrum master at Swisscom, and I know Matt from years ago, and I actually looked up to him when I was at university. So it's so nice to have Matt come and join us. He was based in the UK, but has actually been living out in Switzerland for a while. So it should be a good episode to dive into kind of his background, why he was an inspiration to me, and equally how he's gone from UK to Switzerland and that whole story.
Wow. Great.
So that's it. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll catch you at the next episode.
Great.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.